I was watching the _twig talk about two-weapon fighting because it's important to brush up on all of the weird rules interactions of D&D, and that channel is fantastic for that kind of stuff. And one thing that they mentioned kind of stuck with me, and it was that the light hammer has the nick property, but also if you combine it with the crusher feat, you can knock someone 5 feet back once per turn. And I thought that was very funny, and the thought would not leave me alone that we could do a build around that and other hammers of sorts. So I'm going to now present to you the Hammer Brother, basically from Mario, if that's what you want to play. But the concept here is lots of bludgeoning damage, and we're using some cool third-party stuff, as always. So let's hop into it. All right, this one took me longer than it probably should, because I kept getting the maths wrong, and I kept forgetting and adding and unadding modifiers. And then last night when I was meant to be sleeping, it occurred to me that I should be using a different weapon for one of the attacks as well. But it's a whole thing. Anyway, the point is, this is a Barbarian straight class all the way from 1 to 12. After that point, you should probably just go Fighter, as is often the way, but it's up to you. Yes, so we're taking Barbarian. I'm not going to be worried about the skills and whatnot, because that's very much pick what you want to be good at. So we're Barbarian class, called a Hammer Bro here, obviously. We're going to go with the Farmer background because it gives us the tough feat, which is going to be useful because we're probably going to be taking a lot of damage. And then we can boost our con by 1 and our strength by 2 because this is a strength-based build. We're going Goliath because this is a strength-based build. I wanted to do something fancier, but man, the classics are classics for a reason. Also, because we're aiming to lock down our opponents a lot here and move them around and generally mess with them, the Frost Giant Goliath, the Frost Chill ability, is going to be incredible. When you hit a target with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can also deal 1d6 cold damage to that target and reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. You get a number of uses of this equal to your proficiency bonus, and you can actually do this any number of times per turn you want. This allows us to completely lock a target out of a whole turn, basically, assuming they're a melee combatant, or spread them out as we go. But I think that's pretty cool. For stats, what we're going with here is very simple. We're going 15, 15, 15. Realistically, we're not going to bump our dex during the main build, so you could put a 10 in something, probably wisdom if you wanted to. And then obviously with our stat bonuses, we've got +2 to strength and +1 to con. So we are at 17, 14, 16, 8, 10, 8. The constitution is important because you're a barbarian, and the strength is important because that's what we're using to attack. It's simple enough. The one thing that is relevant at level 1 is that we choose our masteries. And to start off with, we're going with the club and the light hammer. We want the light hammer for nick, and we want the club because it is a light weapon that also does bludgeoning damage, and it has the slow property. The slow property means that we reduce a creature's speed by 10 feet. Technically, this works as many times as you want, but you can only ever reduce speed by 10 feet using this weapon mastery. So technically, you could hit multiple creatures with this. I'm not assuming that's the case, but it's something worth noting. And then nick allows us to do an extra 1d4 of damage, basically. The damage of the hammer isn't all that relevant, except we do use our strength modifier. Naturally, we will be raging in combat, and the way that I will be doing the damage calculations is assuming that we've already raged. So this will be second turn damage most of the time, because we'll be using our bonus action later on. Rage obviously gives us resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which is lovely, and it gives us advantage on strength checks and a bunch of other stuff. But the main thing it gives us is the rage damage, which I wish scaled better, but here we are. You will often see rage damage and barbarians using big weapons. You can get slightly more out of your rage damage if you're doing a lot of attacks, and while that is a little trickier using strength, it's not impossible. So while a greatsword would do 2d6 plus your strength modifier +2 for your rage damage, 2d6 versus 2d4, which is the amount of damage that we're doing with our club, which is a 1d4, and the light hammer, which is also 1d4, is offset by the fact that you're getting an extra boost of rage damage. And I know that sounds utterly ridiculous because the max on 2d6 is 12, the max on 2d4 is 8, but the average on 2d6 is 3.5, and the average on the average on 1d6, sorry, is 3.5, and the average on 1d4 is 2.5. That is only a 1 point difference. So if we're acting our rage damage bonus again, technically we're clearing that gap. So while our damage ceiling isn't as high, it is a lot more consistent, and I think that's really cool. So we will be adding our rage damage modifier twice, even at level 1. The result of this, and I won't do this at every level, I'll give you the total figures, but the result of this is that your club is 1d4 +3 +2 for an average of 7.5, and your light hammer is 1d4 +2 because we don't add our ability modifier, but we do add our rage damage bonus, which that's 4.5. Along with that, we already have 2 uses of Frost's Chill at this level, which means that we can do an extra 2d6 damage, which is an extra 7 damage in total. Which means we can, if we want to go Nova, as it were, do 19 damage, along with also slowing a creature down by 30 feet. That is most creatures' movement speeds in their entirety at this level. I think that's a very strong start, and while this doesn't grow as fast as I'd like, the control properties it grants as we level up is pretty cool. So that was the general spiel. It won't always be that long for each level, don't worry. Level 2 gets us mainly Reckless Attack, which is huge, and Danger Sense, so we give advantage on dex saves. Reckless Attack means we have advantage to hit, which means that we will be rolling 2 dice instead of 1 dice for every attack, which ups our crit rate pretty substantially. Level 2 doesn't do anything for our damage though. Level 3 is interesting. There are a bunch of subclasses here that you could choose from, and I considered a lot of them. The Path of the Muscle Wizard from Valdespire Secrets is actually one of the first ones I considered, and the reason for that is because at level 6 you get your spells, and one of these is Magic Missile, which allows you to make 3 ranged attacks using darts, daggers, or other weapons with a thrown property that use strength for the attack and damage rolls, like the light hammer. And you can throw 3 of these as a bonus action, but you can only do this once per long rest, and that's just not enough. I think you can run this build with the Berserker, you can run this build with basically any of the classes. Weirdly, the Giant Barbarian, which is what I was considering initially, isn't as good anymore because rage damage already applies to thrown weapons, whereas it didn't used to. So I thought we'd have some fun and lean more into the control aspects of things, which means that we're going for the Path of the Spellscorned from the Cthulhu by Torchlight, which is the one which the wonderful Treant Monk had a hand in designing. This is the Anti-Mage Monk, the Anti-Mage Barbarian. Along with some boosts to some other stuff, we have a 30-foot emanation in an aura, which grants a bonus to saving throws equal to your rage damage, which is only, but that's not bad. That's a pretty decent paladin impression, actually, and 30 feet is a lot. The more important thing, for our damage at the very least, is that once per turn, you can deal double your rage damage bonus to a target you hit with a strength-based attack. This means that our rage bonus on one of our hits goes from 2 to 4, which gives us a nice little bump in damage from 19 to 21 overall. However, if the creature has legendary actions, can cast spells, or was summoned, you can triple it instead. At no point in my numbers have I considered tripling it, I've only got double, but it is worth noting that every so often you'll spike up to 23 damage, especially if you are, and you should be, hunting down mages with this class. We are now at level 4, and level 4 is a big one for us. We're going to pick up, it's up to you which one you really want. I'm going to go with a Warhammer to stick to the theme, but you could go for Great Club as it also has the Push Mastery. And the Push Mastery will be relevant next level, not right now. We're also going to take the Thrown Weapon Master Feat from Grim Hollow. We're going to bump our strength here, which bumps us up to 18, so we get a nice little bump of damage from that. But we also get a bunch of awesome abilities here. Any simple weapons with a thrown property that you're proficient with also have the returning property, which means that they come back to you. This is amazing. This allows us to not have to carry around 100 hammers with us, which is probably for the best. And it means that we just have simpler, it's just better. It also gives us quick hands, so we can stow or wield all simple weapons with a thrown property within 5 feet of you, which is awesome. And it gives us the multi-throw ability. When you take the attack action to make a ranged attack using a simple weapon that has the thrown property, you don't have to throw the weapon, which means that we can just use our light hammer in melee range. You can make 2 additional ranged attacks using simple weapons that have the thrown property as a bonus action. This effectively gives us 2 more attacks, which means that even at this point, we are doing 4 attacks at level 4. Granted, not with the strongest weapons around, but we're getting 4 instances of that rage damage. This means that our damage last level, which was 21, has jumped up to 39 because of the fact that we're doing 2 extra light hammer attacks. And that gives us an extra chunk of damage, which is incredible. So, as you can see, we're kind of already off to the races. At this point as well, we're still just using the 2 instances of Frost's Chill, but that means we're slowing creatures down by 30 feet. We really want the Crusher feat, and it is important, but we'll get there, I promise. Level 5 is where we get other good stuff. We get an extra 10 feet of movement, which is not irrelevant when we're aiming to start moving things around, and we can attack twice instead of once. We're going to be using one of these attacks as a Warhammer attack. So the way that this is going to work, the way that your turn is going to work, you're going to hit with your club, use the nick attack with your light hammer. We fulfilled the conditions needed to throw 2 more light hammers as our bonus action. And then you're going to use the Warhammer. The Warhammer has a D10 if you wield it with both hands, and you can change weapons and stuff as you're attacking, so that's fine. And then as a bonus action, we're going to throw 2 light hammers. We also get an extra instance of Frost's Chill here because our proficiency bonus goes up, which means that our damage goes up from 39 to 54. And not only that, but we can move enemies 10 feet away from us while also effectively removing their movement. We will be slowing them down, in fact, by 40 feet at this point, which is absurd. So you can not only slow something down by 40 feet, but move them 10 feet away from you as well. It's very unlikely any creature is going to be able to get around that. That's to say nothing of the idea that you can just yeet different things and potentially hit Frost Chill at a bunch of targets. This is a massive single target damage, but it's also pretty good for AoE because you can spread your attacks around comfortably. Level 6 does nothing for our damage. We're still at 54, but that's not the end of the world. It does, however, give us the counter spell. It gives us counter spell as a Barbarian. You can cast this without a spell slot or components, even if your rage is active, and as part of that you can move up to your speed and hit something as well, which means that you can chase down spellcasters. You can do this once per short or long rest. Absolutely exceptional. Level 7, again, we don't get a huge amount here, nothing damage wise, but we do get the ability to have advantage on initiative rolls, which is always nice, and we can also move half our speed when we rage, which gives us a lot of extra movement. All of this, bear in mind, is also not considering the fact that we can also be a large size if we use our Frost Goliath ability. This is quite bonus action heavy, but you know, you can argue with the DM about being able to do that the moment you sense danger, right? That's what I would do. Level 8 is really where this whole build kind of comes together, and I know that's a fair bit through things, but I don't think it's so far through that it's kind of useless up until that point. The damage we've been doing up until that point is undoubtedly good. So at this point, we pick up the Crusher feat, which boosts our strength to 19, which is always nice, and it lets us push once per turn with, whenever we hit a creature with an attack that deals bludgeoning damage, you can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space if the target is no more than one size larger than you. Because we can grow larger, that's a relevant bit of text. It also allows us to grant everyone advantage on a creature if we crit with a hit with our bludgeoning damage. Because we have advantage because of our reckless attacks, this gives us and the amount of attacks we're doing, we actually have a 40% chance of critting every turn, I think, which is pretty exceptional. This again does not boost our damage, but it does mean that our movement, our potential to move creatures is a lot better now. So we can not only still slow them by 40 feet, which is lovely, you can also move them 10 feet with the push weapon mastery from the Warhammer and a further 5 feet with the hammer as well. So that's not bad. Level 9 is a hard one to quantify. It gives us Brutal Strike, which lets us forgo advantage on a specific strength-based attack roll of your choice. The attack roll can't have disadvantage, and if the attack hits, you can deal an extra 1d10 of damage, which is good. So that's an extra 5.5 of damage. I've not factored that into my damage calculations for no real reason. It wouldn't be dishonest to do that. It's just hard to quantify specifically because of you have to figure out when you want to give up advantage. Along with that, it also allows us to either further reduce the speed of a creature by 15 feet, and I think that's the right choice, or knock them 15 feet away from you, and then you can move up half your speed so you can chase them down. Because we're going to be doing so many attacks, the likelihood of one of these hitting and you being able to crit also, as per the previous level, is pretty relevant. So this makes our potential movement of other creatures, this makes the amount that we can move other creatures up to 25 feet. And we also get a proficiency bonus spike at this level as well. So we go up to 4 PB, which means that we get another use of Frost's Chill. So while it might not seem as though we've gotten much from this level, we have actually gotten an awful lot from this level. And it means that our damage goes from 54 to 63.5. So that's almost a 10-point average. And that's assuming no crit damage, and again, that's not including the 5.5 damage average from the 1d10 either. Along with that, we can slow a creature by 50 feet and move them up to 25 feet. Your DM's going to hate this, and I am sorry to DMs. I am genuinely sorry to DMs. At level 10, nothing happens to our damage or our movement stuff, but we can give resistance to creatures using a big old shout. And if you're feeling spicy, you can pick up a heavy crossbow, the heavy crossbow mastery as well. This just lets us push at range. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. I do think it's funny to have in your back pocket. Level 11 comes around and gives us relentless range. There's no change to our damage or our controlling abilities here, but it does mean that we're an awful lot harder to kill, and that is never a bad thing. Our final level for this build is level 12, which lets us get our strength up to 20, which results in an extra bit of damage. So we'll be doing 67.5 damage, 5.5 more damage than on average if you're using the Brutal Strikes, which you should be. The tricky thing here is which feat to take. The Mage Slayer feat is a very good shout and fits very thematically. This obviously gives us advantage on, it gives creatures disadvantage on maintaining their concentration if we're the person who hit them, and it also lets us automatically succeed in a saving throw on the intelligence, wisdom, or charisma savings, which is nice. However, you could also consider taking Throne Arms Master from the critical role, one of the critical role books. This also lets us boost our strength, which means we're still up to 20, and it gives us the ability to give weapons that don't normally have a thrown range, which means we can throw our Warhammer as long as we're considering that as a one-handed weapon, and it is versatile, so it is both. It gives us a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. Even if you are two-handing it, it has a normal range of 15 and a long range of 30, so that's still not bad. Any weapons that already have the thrown property, such as our light hammers, which we are still making 3 attacks with per turn, keep in mind, get their range boosted by 20 feet and 40 feet, respectively. Along with that, if you miss, the weapon comes back. But we're doing that already. We've got returning weapons already, so that bit's not useful. But the rest of it is a nice little boost to our range. You can now throw your hammers up to 40 feet away from you, potentially push them, potentially crit them, and make sure that everyone else has advantage on those creatures. And you can even throw your Warhammer to push something back 20 feet, or your club to push them back as well. You are, at this point, the true Hammer Brother. You are just throwing bludgeoning weapons like nothing else in this game, and I do think that could be a lot of fun. That's the end of the build here. If you were to take this on, you do get some cool stuff at higher levels. You get better brutal strikes, which is lovely, but you also get this ability to cast a banishment spell on a bunch of creatures to bring you, your friends, and like a specific enemy into a unique space where you can just beat them up. So that's fun. You could also take, if you wanted to lean more into the damage side of things and kind of boost your general chances, I think Fighter's a perfectly logical choice here as well. You get to level 3 at Fighter, you pick Champion, suddenly you've got better chance to crit, which is very relevant for our Crusher feat. But it also means that we can Action Surge, and we can do a lot of that again, right? Which is big. That's a big boost to damage. But it is up to you. That is that, however, for this build. I hope you enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun putting this one together. I really want to test this one out because it just seems like it would be a lot of fun. Let me know if you ever get a chance to play, or if you played something similar, and I will see you whenever the next time hits. Oh, also, we hit 1,000 subscribers. Wait, we hit 1,000 subscribers as of recording this literally last night. I'll probably talk about this in another video I'm going to record today as well. Maybe I should do that at the beginning. But yeah, I wanted to thank you all so much. It means a huge amount. I'm still figuring out how to be a YouTuber on that front. I should probably open a Discord, maybe look at Patreon. I don't know what I would do. Maybe stupid stuff like this. I've also got a massive spreadsheet that I want to talk about because you can't take the accountant out of me as much as I tried. Anyway, that is for another day, not today. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed this. Do like and subscribe, share the video and all that good stuff, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.